if you said to me 10 years ago, oh no, you would probably want to be one of the most famous radio voices in South African history, I'd be like, no. So it really was one of the most played ads that's in South African history. And it also changed the way South Africa does banking. Steve suddenly happened and it became this enormous impact that my voice had on a country.
Hi, Kevin. Welcome to The Exceptional. Thank you very much for your time. I know you have a busy schedule with all your training and all your coaching that you're involved with. So once again, thank you very much for joining us today on The Exceptional.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Kevin, for mostly our international listeners, quickly give a brief background. Who is Kevin Britz? We all know you as the voice of Steve, the F&B long campaign, radio campaign. But who is Kevin Britz and how did you become Steve?
So I mean, it's a long story, but the quick version of that is Kevin Britz is just an eager, kind of optimistic dad and business owner, and someone who loves to serve other people. And that's really what my business is based on. And how I became Steve was many moons ago. I didn't have work and I was struggling to get work, and I wanted to sort that out and try to get to just to making money. And I was busy emceeing one of the casinos in Johannesburg. And the same agency that employed me said, well, why don't you go and do voiceover work? And I was like, what does that do? What does that mean? And so I went and I registered on Voice Bank. It's where you just register on sort of a platform to get your voice on radio. And I did 2 ads, and by the 3rd ad, it was F&B, and I walked into a room, and there were about 15 people in the room, and I asked them, so who's going to be Steve, and who's all auditioning for this? And they said, no, we like your voice. You're going to be this dude. And Dick just explained it. And we sort of came up with that voice. And 3 weeks later, they were like, okay, we really like this stuff, and I think we're going to probably do it again. And we did. And it just became really successful. And eventually, for 4 years, I was paid a salary just to be the voice of Steve. So it was really, really amazing.
So was this radio ad for 4 years on radio?
Yeah. So for 4 years, it became some of the stats that they often shared was within the first 6 weeks. First 6 months of the campaign, they had opened more check accounts at F&B than they had in the history of F&B. It also was the most English and other language radio ad that has ever played as much and has been as popular as that one was. So basically on every other language that had English on it, radio station, they played the Steve ad. So it really was one of the most played ads that's in South African history. And it also changed the way South Africa does banking. So to be part of that was quite special, and to even have been part of a campaign like that won international awards and stuff like that, it was like really cool.
So how did it feel to be the most popular unknown celebrity on radio?
It was a little bit annoying because as much as I was proud to be the voice of Steve, one of the things that they did ask was to not tell anybody about it, because the anonymity of Steve worked in its favor, because I didn't look like what everyone thought I sounded like. So they liked that play on keeping that completely secret. So it was a little bit annoying, but it worked in my favor, and it was very successful. and something I'm really proud to sort of have on my CV, you know? So, yeah.
So it's amazing. I must say, when I met you, I also said, huh, this Steve, this guy? No, it can't be. But as you said, that was, I think, the whole success of it, because nobody knew who Steve really was and how you looked like.
Yeah, so I think that's probably why it was the theater of the mind, and people you know made Steve like a really nerdish looking guy with glasses, and other people made him like look chubby and had funny frizzy. That's what people explained to me.
Hmm.
They're like, I thought Steve looked like this or looked like, and it was like, no, that you know he looks like this.
What? Sorry, yes.
No, so I think that's what played into the captivating the audience as much as it did.
What was the biggest lesson that you learned from being the voice of Steve?
The biggest lesson, I think, probably would be that anything is possible. You know, I came from an environment where my family, specifically my brothers, were not very supportive of much of me, and when I suddenly started just doing what I wanted to do and living the life I wanted to do, Steve suddenly happened, and it became this enormous impact that my voice had on a country. And only after probably 2 or 3 years into Steve, I started realizing that anything is possible. You know, if you said to me 10 years ago, oh no, you would probably want to be one of the most famous radio voices in South African history, I'd be like, no, come on, you know, how would you do that? And essentially, it did, you know. So I think one of the biggest lessons is, you know, and it's part of what I teach today. It's all got to do with how you language information in your mind, and where you're at in your head. That you get to achieve what you want to, because anything really is possible. It's more possible than we realize.
You wrote in one of your blogs about confidence, and how important it is. What is confidence to you, and why is it so important in today's economy for entrepreneurs, for people in employment that want to start their own business, and in the selling environment?
So the reason why I often have focused on having confidence is because I really struggled with confidence when I was younger. And although you know, I was a stage performer when I was in my teens and 20s, I really, when you engage with me one-on-one, I'd be very shy and very awkward and very like uncomfortable speaking to people. So I really knew the you know, that confidence was an issue for me and how I needed to fix it. And then I started researching and trying to understand why it's such an important thing. And if we do look at it in business and in entrepreneurs today, confidence really lends itself to how you convey who you are and what your brand stands for. So very often when people get that wrong, or they don't get it as spot on as they'd like, they don't usually get the results they're looking for. And from doing the research and understanding NLP, confidence really is a state. And psychology tells us that every decision that we make is state dependent. So meaning, if you're not in the right state and you're about to do this thing that's a really important thing, and you're not supporting that decision with the right thing that's happening in your head, it usually throws it off. It doesn't get you the results. And confidence, very often, when you're in sales, when you're presenting, when you're meeting clients, when you're phoning clients, all of that comes back to confidence and saying, well, do you have the confidence to pull that off? And do you have the confidence in yourself to believe what it is you're selling? Because if you don't, people see right through it, and it becomes a sort of a stumbling block, and people often don't know how to change it or get over it.
Is confidence, does it transcend into your body language as well? If you've got great confidence, your body language is going to exuberate that. And how important is body language in the sales process?
Yeah, so confidence in itself, you know, very often what people don't realize, in NLP, we call it the communication model. And in the communication model, 93% of your communication is non-verbal communication. So when you've got a program, an old program of lack of confidence or rejection or not feeling worthy or whatever of running in the background, you will eventually, and your language will eventually show up in that manner, and you'll start giving it away. So when it comes to how you actually use your body and the way that you use it, and studies will show you can actually learn this by emulating it from someone else or learning from someone else, and how much that 93 non-verbal communication actually assists you when selling, and how you're using your voice and how you're speaking to people, and whether you're smiling and whether you're coming across and whether you're making eye contact or not. It's really, really important, because subconsciously our brains don't go, oh, why is he not looking at me? Our brains go, there's something not on here. There's something not off about this guy, and I don't know what it is. And that's what the subconscious does. It's picking up on all the non-verbal communication that your brain is really figuring out for itself, and it becomes something you don't trust, or you're not comfortable with this person, and that's what they're picking up on. But when you come across this confidence and you make eye contact and you speak to someone and you use your body and you use your voice and it sounds a certain way and you behave a certain way, it lends itself very well to what it is you're trying to achieve, specifically in sales.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about leadership today, and leaders and how you lead a team. What, according to you, would be the number one skill or skill set that a leader needs to effectively lead a team?
It's a tough question, because there's so much, and there's so much written about this topic, and so many people have an opinion about it. But what I've noticed in coaching and dealing with corporates, and very often the biggest mistake people make is they work with the wall. From what I've noticed, the biggest mistake, in my opinion, is people employ the wrong people. So the people who I work with and the people who are in my teams, we all speak a language of NLP, because that's the foundation that we coach from. And when you do have that kind of understanding, very often you understand that when we're having a discussion, until you give meaning to someone, there is no meaning to it. Unless you're giving it meaning, then there's meaning to it. So really, really noticing who it is you're actually employing or working with or choose to work with. And the second thing I think is people need to talk less, or leaders need to talk less and listen more. They very often, because you're the leader, you just go and say, well, I'm the leader, you have to listen to me. People don't have to listen to anybody. And, just because you're the leader and the boss and you have the title, doesn't make you a really effective communicator. So very often it becomes a lack of communication skill when people don't actually just stop talking and listen. And when you've got information, and you've got enough information, and you understand enough from what someone's trying to convey or trying to get you to understand, then you can actually take action towards that and saying, okay, cool, what's the action? And I think those kind of key elements are vitally important in leadership today, where people should stop talking, listen more, and then take action, and not swap those things around. It doesn't work the other way.
That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, as they say, né?
Exactly. That's exactly the point.
Yeah, and I think it's great for leaders to really, in that, create an environment for people to thrive, rather than just forcing them into something that he thinks is right, he or she thinks is right.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of goes without saying, forcing anything on anyone is never successful. What you really need to do is, if you have the right kind of people around you, and people who are eager, people who are driven, people who have the same vision as you, who have the same values, specifically in business, once you've got that covered, then just sitting back and listening and paying attention to who they are and how they do things and learning from them really puts you in a position of how all of this works really effectively. And once you've got that information, leading is so much easier, and it becomes sort of the next logical step to do, because you've armed yourself with the right kind of people and enough information to make the necessary decisions.
Yeah. Kevin, what is success to you? Everyone has their own definition of success. What is success to Kevin Britz?
I think success to me today is for me personally, it's about challenging yourself. So very often what people often do is they measure themselves according to how their families did it, or how their father did it, and what they don't have or what they do have. And it becomes a debilitator. The moment you have an external reference of this thing that you're trying to achieve, your brain's going, oh, so you don't have it, but they have it, so that must mean something. But the moment you stop that process and you really evaluate what it is you're doing and how you're doing, and challenging yourself, that for me specifically is really, really tied well into success, because it really gives you a whole new reframed version of, well, how do I measure whether I'm doing well or not? And if I can say, okay, cool, this month was a lot better than last month, then I can say, okay, well, I have no one to blame but me for that. And when you use an external reference and an external guide to say, well, success is that, it becomes a debilitator. So it's really more of getting your brain on board, saying, well, who am I and how do I show up for me, and what does that mean?
Yeah.
I think that's what really ties into success really well.
Yeah, everyone has their own opinion about success, and what success is for you is different for anybody else. So I don't think it's something that you need to measure against anyone else. You just need to compete against yourself and become a better person yourself every day.
Exactly, yeah.
Kevin, how do you set goals for yourself? I know you've got some massive goals. How do you go through that process of setting goals for yourself?
I have a really awesome little app that I've started using, and I I just want to get the right name for it. It's called the Goal Wizard on your app store, and from Brian Tracy. What it does, and because when people automatically set goals, very often it's it's like it feels very far. So what's nice about this kind of way of setting goals is it asks you some really valuable questions and starts getting into your mind about what it is you're wanting to achieve and why haven't you achieved it yet, and sort of getting those answers sorted out. And that's really because those become your driver. And the moment you get to, okay, cool, my driver is because I find it's too difficult. I think it's too difficult. Then you can say, okay, what is difficult about it? So I think when I set goals, I really want to know what it is, why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because we all want fancy cars and houses and beautiful bodies and whatever that is. We all want those things. But if you have the wrong driver from an internal perspective, you don't necessarily achieve that. And it can become a debilitator. So what I've noticed with the successes that I've had, and those were goals that I set, is I had a wonderful success with Sun International, one of my clients, and I was so excited to get that job and do the job. And then I arrived there, and I was like, oh shit, this is not as amazing as I thought it would be. And then when I realized that, I realized, well, how I measure myself in how I perform and what I can achieve needs to shift. And today, my goals are not specifically based on things like that, but more based on a wider spectrum of how many people can I share information with, how many people can I affect with knowledge to be able to change their own lives. So I think for me, goal setting is really an internal thing, and really understanding where you're coming from, what your drivers are. And once you've got that, you can start clarifying how to get to the next step.
Yeah. Kevin, I want to talk a bit more about your company, Voice by Design. Interesting name. Why did you choose Voice by Design as the name? It's very interesting.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, so when I was younger, I struggled with confidence, and for me, it felt like I never really had a voice. I didn't have a voice in the world. I didn't have a voice in the world. And then I became the voice of Steve, and I was like, oh, hang on, I actually have a voice, and everybody now knows it. And one of my business coaches said, so why are you doing this business? And, what's the point? And I said, well, I make point, then you're probably not going to make money. So I really thought about it, and when I really thought about why I'm choosing this name, I actually realized that very often I know how to have a voice today, and I want to be able to share that information and share knowledge with people to say, I know how you can design your own voice, because I did. I've come a far way and a long way, and through some really tough times, and I managed to design my own voice, and I have a voice today, and I affect a lot of people's lives, and I do that proudly, and I do it humbly, but I know how to do that.
It's amazing, a fascinating story in the name that you brought in there. I want to pick your brain a bit. I need to do a presentation. My listeners need to do a presentation. What are the 5 key things that they need to consider when they prepare for the presentation or set up that presentation?
So the thing with the one thing, and I've done a lot of research on this, and that's why these points that you're asking for are quite key and quite significant. What people don't realize is when you're doing a presentation, eyes are on you. And very often what we think is like, yeah, and I'll just quickly wing that thing. I'll quickly go and do that, and it's cool. What we don't realize is when people are watching us up on stage or up in front of a projector or in front of our presentation, we instinctively go into a bit of shock. So when you go into a bit of shock, you don't necessarily feel as prepared as you should, and you start rambling. So even today's presentation that we do, I mean, this actual interview that we're having right now, I've sat and prepared for it, because I know that the moment you're on camera, the moment eyes are on you, your body will respond differently. So that's the one thing that we always need to sort of take away from understanding when you're about to present something. So the first thing I would suggest that people do is write down the story first, because our brains are built for structure. If we have a structured way of putting a story together, it will make sense to us and it will make sense to the audience. And when we can structure information better, we have a better way of translating that, and people understand it better, and we don't waffle, and we're not all over the show, and it makes absolute sense. And that's why writing it down before you just throwing a bunch of slides together, write it down and have some structure, because your brain and people's brains like structure. The other thing I would suggest is use pictures, not sentences. People came to listen to you speak. People came to listen to an engagement of yours. They didn't come there to read your presentation. That's just the bottom line. So if you have bullet points and lines and graphs and stuff like that, that's not necessarily like the language of your audience. So if you understand graphs and you understand bullet points, that's wonderful. But you didn't come and do that for you. You came to do it for an audience. So when you speak into the audience, they came there to listen. They did not come there to read. That's the second thing. I think it's also really, really important to be able to rehearse. The more you can rehearse, the more it becomes a natural way for you to actually speak the story and speak about what it is you're trying to convey in your messaging, the better you get at it. And rehearsal, you can look at top athletes. They rehearse and practice 8 hours a day for a reason. That's why they're the top athletes. If you want to be a great speaker, speak often. You do this regularly, on a regular basis. You're someone who does it quite naturally, and you've done it so much already that it's become part of who you are. So it becomes a really obvious thing when someone's not rehearsing, when someone's not practicing this thing that they want to do with people. You really, really have to be able to pull it off. And it comes back to the body language and the nonverbal communication. People can see right through the unrehearsed, unconfident someone who's trying to pull it off. People see through it. And then lastly, I would say cultivate your confidence, and you can do that by rehearsal, but also tell a story. People are inherently interested in stories, and people engage with their brains from the imagination, from an imagination point of view. People like thinking about stories and putting stuff in their heads, and the more descriptive you are about how wonderful you can put the story together, the more they'll remember the story. So that's why people remember the Steve story, and because there's an actual story to it, and how I put it together, and I thought about it, and how I wanted people to understand going from sort of zero to hero kind of in my life. There's a story attached, and that's why people are engaged with it and people remember it. It's telling a story. Yeah. So those are quite significant points that are, relevant when presenting.
Thanks for the compliment. And I think that the issues that and the key elements that you've discussed there is paramount to set up a presentation and to convey your message and your story to your audience. Kevin, what projects are you currently working on?
We've created a whole new business called Mind the Change Academy, and that is sort of changed towards a very corporate training element. And I have two wonderful business coaches who are business partners now. And we sort of accredit NLP certified coaches. And so that's one of the projects that I'm busy with. Voice by Design will essentially become a coaching business, and agile coaching. I'm not sure if you know agile. Agile is sort of a consulting way for business, specifically on running certain projects. So it's really aimed at coaching specifically, and agile coaching. And I've started writing the Steve story, so I'm busy writing that as a book, and the lessons I've learned, and sort of sharing how I went from homeless, living with my mother, kind of, to becoming a famous radio personality. So I'm busy with that. Writing a book is not as easy as I thought. It's quite, and you would know, you're busy with stuff like that. You've got your own, haven't you?
Yes, I do.
So
I'm looking forward to read yours.
Thank you. And then lastly, I'm just busy with some performance. So I'm actually performing on stage. I'm going to be doing a barnyard kind of performance where I'm singing at the barnyard, and then another kind of side project where hopefully we'll release an actual single, something I wrote, I wrote a song that I really want to release. So there's a lot of
man of many talents. I know you're an avid singer as well, and a very good one as well, so very good luck with that. And with a single as well. Kevin, last few questions. Who are your idols, your heroes, your mentors, coaches that you look up to?
So, strangely enough, when I was a teenager, my one brother was the person I looked up to, and the one that I always thought, I want to do what he's doing, and I want to be that kind of successful. But then life changed, people change, and things, changed. And I suddenly realized that I don't really like my family as much as I thought I did. And they also just, we're just different people. We have different values, and so today, when I think of an idol or someone I look up to, it would probably just be people who have a significant impact to the world. And if I have to mention a few people that I pay attention to very often, it would be Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins, also known as Anthony Robbins. He's been doing what he's doing for the last 25 years. And when he deals with people, it's on a scale of 5,000 at a time. The other person who is amazing at telling stories and sharing really useful insight is Lisa Nichols. Also has amazing stories and really significant things to share, and a way that she pulls it off is just really engaging, and also touches on a lot of people. And then lastly, it would probably be Wayne W. Dyer. He's been a coach and mentor and a spiritual person in the world, who's also written many books on many areas. That's sort of very significant, and I have a lot of those people's books, and I keep myself busy with a lot of that.
Cool. Quick insight into Kevin Britz. What is your favorite color?
Favorite color would be I'm not sure what the color is called. It's like a turquoise blue aqua kind of color.
I think everyone knows exactly what that is. Do you prefer summer or winter?
Definitely summer, because I'm really not enjoying the cold at the moment.
Yeah, it is cold today. When you go on vacation, sea vacation or bushveld?
Bushveld. I love the outdoors. I love animals. And I also realize when I'm in the bush, it needs to be with people who don't speak, because I find it really annoying when you're going to watch an elephant, or you're going to do something out in the wild and people have conversation. It's like, that's not why we're here. Stop talking. So definitely bush.
Favorite book that you've read?
Favorite book. One of the, I mean, I have many, but one of the ones I'm reading at the moment is Going from Good to Great from Jim Collins. It's really interesting, and he explains how some businesses in the world have done really well and significantly, but him and his research team are looking at how people go from doing really well to doing exceptionally well, and what that process is and how to pull it off. And it's quite insightful. I'm still busy with it though. It's lovely.
And your favorite quote?
Favorite quote? Probably one of the ones that Wayne W. Dyer, which I recently just actually saw. He speaks about manifesting anything in your world. And I made a note about it because it's quite significant. And he says, you can manifest anything you want to in proportion to the degree of your attention to it. And what's significant about that is the more you pay attention to something that you want in your world and your environment and you want in your life, it really depends on the degree that you're paying attention to this thing. And the more you do it, the better you get. It's quite a powerful statement. And when you really examine it, it makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's a powerful quote there. And the more you focus on that and you focus on your goals and what you want, you'll probably get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Kevin, final thoughts from you. What message would you like to leave our listeners and our viewers to move from and transform from being ordinary to going to extraordinary to being exceptional?
I think being exceptional is one thing that a lot of people don't realize is you already are. People don't realize that you are already exceptional. The only difference between people like me and you and the next guy is how much, like Wayne W. Dyer says, how much attention you're actually putting on what it is you want. People are exceptional already. It's a case of really examining what it is you want and getting that clear, defined vision of how life really wants to play out for you. And from all the research that I've done, and because I spend a lot of time online and looking and understanding, and especially around people's behavior and how your brain works and why, and it comes back to science, because I like the fact that science can sort of prove stuff. And one of the areas of science, like quantum physics, sort of explains to us that in observation of something, you start cultivating and manifesting reality in the observation of something. And if we understand that you already are exceptional, all your brain, as the observer of your world, is waiting for you to do is to start paying attention to what exceptionally you do and why you are exceptional. And I think that's the differentiator between an exceptional person and someone who's doing well, is people who are exceptional are doing everything that people who are doing well are not doing. So I don't have DSTV. I don't afford myself the luxury, and I avoid watching TV. I think it becomes brain numbness, and I don't want to be a brain numb person. So for me, I think I'm on my way to exceptional, and I think I have exceptional moments, and when I do, I definitely know that it's the acknowledgement about myself in how I'm doing that and how I pull it off, but also doing the thing that no one else is doing. It's like, if you want to be exceptional, be exceptional. Don't talk about it. Don't have a long discussion about it. You must actually be that. And if exceptional is being something, then you've got to sort of measure it and say, what is that and how does it show up and what are you doing exceptionally? How disciplined are you? I was actually writing a quote down. Will Smith he has these little videos. It's quite interesting. And one of the things he explains, he says that you really know that you love yourself when you display a healthy degree of discipline. And when you think of discipline, you think, well, what's discipline got to do with self-love? Yeah. But again, as an exceptional human being, people who are disciplined very specifically are disciplined on what they eat, on how much they drink, on how healthy they are, on how they run their business and what degree and what standard they have, in their business. It comes back to a very specific discipline that you have in your world. And if you're not disciplined, very often it ties back to self-love and it ties back to being exceptional. You want to be exceptional, you're going to really have the discipline to be exceptional and really ask yourself, what does it mean for me to be exceptional today and how do I measure that and how do I do it? And if you're not, there's no one else you can blame but yourself.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this interview, having talked to you, getting insights from you, getting to know you better. Thank you very much. Thanks for being on The Exceptional. I think you're exceptional. I think you've touched a lot of people's lives, the way that you've transformed yourself. Good luck with all your projects. Good luck with the single. I'd love to hear that sometime. And enjoy your day further. And thank you again for being on The Exceptional.
Thanks, Francois. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the support. And really looking forward to seeing this online and engaging with people if they want to get in contact. Thank you.